Peace and blessings, and welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to be talking about reparations and where do we see it in nature? Where the original reparations, what was that scenario? How can this help us? Are there any solutions? I'm going to tell you right now, there's definitely solutions when you look into nature, and I've got to share this with you. So I hope you sit here and listen to the entire thing. It's going to be a part 2 of this. You've got to hear this. So, just to get straight in, one of the first documented occurrences of a need for reparations is when a group of sheep ventured out at night and ended up devouring the crops of a vineyard that wasn't theirs, right? Didn't belong to them. So naturally, this caused a huge setback for the vineyard owner, or we'll call him the Gardner, right? So, the complaint, of course, is that, okay, well, now that this happened, where are my reparations? So it sounds very simple, but when you really start pulling apart the details, you can see it in exactly what's going on today. So I want you to turn your brain on, expand your mind if you can. I know you can. And we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to find a solution to reparations right now, okay? By looking in nature. I'm telling you, it's incredible. So the first thing we got to do is we need to identify the characters. Who are the characters? The sheep. Who are the sheep? Who are the sheep owners, the shepherd, right? Who is the gardener or the vineyard owner? What are reparations really in this scenario when someone infringes on your territory and ends up consuming it and leaves you with nothing? This is not, your mind probably is going straight to, slavery and racism and things like that, but this is actually a common scenario. And so if you break it down by clear your mind, look at it as just a scenario of something that happened, okay? You will see things that you won't necessarily understand if you look at it through the lens of racism or that way. You won't see it. So like I said, clear your mind, open your mind, and let's get into it. So who are the sheep in this scenario? We said the sheep is the obedient consumer, the head down consumer that just consumes through society without really, he's head down. So he's not really conscious of what's happening with his consumption or where his consumption, how it's affecting the group, right? So now this herd mentality, okay, it ends up eating someone else's property, devouring it without question, right? They're head down. And so they're really controlling what is being regulated and what can grow in society, right? So that is who the sheep are in this scenario. Now, who is the shepherd or the sheep owner? So this is the leadership, like we said, whether it's the president, the law, the imam, the pastor, the parent, but specifically when it comes to regulating consumption, the leader. So this could be the business owner, whoever's regulating how we consume things, what we purchase, those types of things. So this is the one that with the ability to move the herd or group, again, by regulating the consumption. So if you recall, this scenario happened at night, right? I said that these sheep went out at night, all right? This is a key word in this, meaning in the dark or unsupervised, right? That's a metaphor for unseen at night, right? So the sheep owner or shepherd was not supervising the sheep when they went off on their own to benefit from what grows and develops in the land, okay? Obviously, they were accustomed to doing it, getting fat off the land, head down, without looking to consider that it has even become their nature, right? This has become their nature. So let's look at this for a moment because this is a key thing to understand. When you follow a leader that is not present, okay, that means it has become your nature, right? You're doing it all the time, okay? It's become your nature. You're doing it all the time, right? There's no one to point to. So the originator of your neglectful consumption or behavior, obviously he's the best magician on earth because somehow he's magically distanced himself from you to the point where you use the word they. We do it all the time. We'll blame things on them. Well, you know what they're doing now, or, they put this, they did this to me, Some, like in the religious communities, will call it Satan. Well, Satan doing this now, Some will call him the white man. Some will say, well, white people, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, by this word at night, right? I study word origins. This word at night is referring to not being able to point directly to something because it's dark, right? But it's there, but you can't point to it. You can't, if you needed to take somebody to court or to do something about it, you couldn't find the actual person. So this was being done without a direct leader saying do it. It had become the nature of the people to consume like that. That is what has happened. Okay. So this is a strong point. This is a key strong point when we're talking about reparations, right? So next, who is the vineyard and the vineyard owner? The Gardner, as I'd like to call it. This is the one that takes time to develop the soil, the land. What grows, making sure that it's protected. This is what the Gardner does, making sure that it is protected. Is the soil in the right place? How can establishment happen in the land like a gardener does, right? Making sure it gets sunlight, making sure it gets rain, protecting what can take root and grow and develop, in the land. So again, at night, the gardener wasn't present. The shepherd wasn't present. You got sheep going into a vineyard and consuming. None of the leadership was there. Not where you can point your finger to it. And we can see this today. None of us can point our finger. Like, remember back in the day, you could say, okay, Hitler, he was the one. That's the man right there. You're looking at him and you see him. After time goes on and that behavior continues, there's no direct leader. Something has happened to you where now you're the one doing it. Okay. So again, this is a key point. But when you think of a gardener and a garden, you have a physical picture of a garden. But again, what I want you to be able to do with your mind is take the physical picture out and look at the characteristics. As human beings, we need a physical picture in order to begin to understand things a lot of times. Okay, so try to do that while you're listening. Okay, so who is the vineyard in this case? Who is the vineyard in this case? We just talked about who the gardener is, or the owner of the vineyard, but who is the vineyard in this case? This is whoever has been cut off from taking root, from growing, from ripening, from developing, from reproducing as a result of unchecked consumption. That is who the vineyard is. Okay, stick with me. So, just to recap, because I need you to stick with me. I'm used to thinking this way and bouncing back with metaphors. So I hope that I don't lose you. So let's real quick recap. What do we have so far? We have the head down consumers getting fed off of what grows and develops into society without any guidance to regulate their consumption. And as a result, they end up cutting off the opportunity for another people to become established, develop, reproduce, and spread. Hopefully you got that. Now, who is the vineyard owner? Okay, let's get a little bit more specific about who the vineyard owner is. We said it was the gardener, but when we talk about growth and development, who is that person today, right? We're talking about physically. Okay, well, before we go into who the person is today, you probably have a farmer, in your mind, but today you might have a father, maybe a father, and his responsibility for protecting the establishment and growth and development of his family, right? Or a picture of a world leader in a war whose land and people are being cut off by someone consuming it unchecked, and he needs to protect them. Like what's going on right now. I don't even have to name names. You already know the things. This is constantly going on, right? That's what I'm saying. This need for reparations and this exact scenario like what we have in America. Okay, so just as we can see how the sheep owner herds and regulates consumption of the material life, we can see how the vineyard owner, the gardener, is responsible for ensuring that the growth and development has a chance to flourish. Okay, tilling the soil, right? How you make sure that the environment is safe for growth and development. Who is this supposed to be, right? Protecting the plant life. We'll use the physical term so that you can pick up the spiritual term of what I'm saying or understanding. Protecting the plant life from the weather, making sure that it can still grow and develop, right? So who did we say the plant life was? In this scenario, those who have been cut off, right, from by the consumer. Okay. So now let's look at what we have one more time. We have the head down consumer getting fat off of the society without any guidance to regulate their consumption, and as a result end up consuming the opportunity and potential of what can take root, grow, and develop and be reproduced in society. Capture that. So because the herd is regulating what happens in society opposed to having guided leadership, this is happening. There's no guided leadership. We talked about this before. People don't want to accept a leader that you can point to anymore. People don't, okay? But this scenario has displaced the gardener. What does the gardener, it's displaced the one who is the protector of establishing and regulating the life. That's what this scenario has done, right? And, you got the consumer thriving while the consumer part of us, all of us have it, the consumer part of us thriving while the part of us that is responsible for regulating what we allow to take root has been displaced. Okay, what we allowed to grow, it's been displaced. There's nothing protecting it, is what I'm trying to say, right? So that is what has happened. So I want you to understand a little bit better this idea of distance leadership. When you distance yourself from being able to point to the leader of what's going on, what's making you do what you do. So let's just look at beating children. Okay, this is a good example. So if your parents gave beatings, right? By the time it's gotten down to you, nobody had really thought about it, right? It's just, child is bad, you beat them, right? And some will say, well, we got it from scripture. Don't spare the rod. Well, clearly you've been reading scripture wrong. That's not how you just read scripture straight for implementing the exact sign without understanding the metaphor of it. You're going to take a rod and start beating people. But my point is, at some point, someone said, wait a minute, you're beating me. You know what I mean? You are beating me. But you've been doing this. It's just been going on, and it's just been passed down until someone actually says it, right? That's the gardener, the one that's like, yo, wait a minute. Don't beat me no more, because this is stunting the growth and development of that person or that child. You don't know what beatings have done to people. It may have stopped them from being courageous in their life. It may have caused them to be abusive to another person. But in any case, it's unchecked, and it has stunted that person's ability in some way that you may never even know about. But I'm giving that example so that you can understand what happens to people, and that we're using these terms like they, or the white man, but we're not really able to say, yeah, you right there, get him, So that's what has happened. And because that has happened, we have to look at this slightly differently, okay? Just a little bit different. So, you also have the mother. You could say, this is another example, a mother who's put consumption above regulating what it takes to, to develop her child, on the inside. That's a mother's job. The fortitude, the heart, building up and expanding what a child is made of, right? So, you could ask her, okay, well, what caused you to not do that? She'll tell you immediately, like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be doing that. We do this all the time. What made you not do that? There's no person that she can just point to, Some of us might say, well, she can point to herself, but no, we're a creation of influence. We do things based on being influenced to do them. So the question becomes, who's responsible? Who's ultimately influencing you to do this? There's no answer to that, right? So because of that, what happens? Does this child do reparations? Because you didn't do your part. You didn't protect them, to make sure that the mother didn't make sure that she spent the time building the child's spirituality, making sure that they could survive internally, get out here and face this place. So the child could say, you know, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Now look at the situation I'm in. How are you going to help me? And a lot of times parents have guilt, especially mom. They have guilt when they don't do what they're supposed to do. And without anybody saying it, they know that. And then you try to throw money at the situation, right? Does that sound familiar? Reparations today, California, trying to throw money at the situation where clearly, and I'm not saying I'm against receiving money. I'm not never going to say that. But I'm just saying, that is not, that's a small part of the puzzle, what the reparations of what needs to happen. Same thing can happen with the father. He's supposed to be responsible for ensuring that there's an environment for his wife and children to grow and develop. He can't point to, well, and you see it today. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to be paying child support. I know I'm supposed to be taking care of my family, but I put my work above that, or I'm just not doing it. Now, if you ask him if he's supposed to be doing it, he's going to say yes. So what? He can't point to a specific person that needs to be punished for influence. I hope this is tying into your mind, because if it's not, then you might have to just start all over. Just go back, listen to my first video, and just come all the way down and keep watching it until you get it. But I just need this to be clear, because this is so important when we're talking about reparations. Your body, even, the person who has put consumption above what takes root and grows and develops in the body. These are all the same scenario, once again. And as a result, your insides are unprotected and you start experiencing cancer and disease and all these things. Your body's unable to develop properly and grow and, be able to fight off this stuff. And eventually it starts talking to you, your body start, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here, and you have an opportunity to provide some reparations. Yet again, another example. And for us, we start popping pills and things like that instead of really feeding the body what we need to feed it. What kind of reparations is that? And lastly, where else do we see it? Clearly slavery, right? Post-slavery. I'm going to say post-slavery. And the reason I'm going to say post-slavery, because again, you can't point directly to the government. You can't point directly to a person. This is what's happened after the laws were changed, okay? After the one we want to call the government changed the laws to say, hey, no more slavery. You had that group that said, we don't care what you're saying. We're going to go out here and we're going to continue this thing. But then what happened after those generations, right? So there was no longer a person that was like, hey, we don't care what you say. We're going to go do this. Some of this stuff, a lot of it is inherent. That's why we're having a problem with even using certain words. You say a word and you think it means one thing, and then you get a phone call that was, inappropriate, derogatory. You're like, huh? But things get passed down is what I'm trying to say, and you're not thinking about the fact that there isn't that person anymore. These are all scenarios where, the people have become responsible, and it's just, this stuff is being passed down. That's why we need to be careful about what we're telling our children. Do you want to pass down the idea that, okay, the reason we can't get nothing done is because, we were slaves and, this happened, and this is why we're not able to get nothing done. What do you think that's going to do, Or on the flip side, are you going to pass down that, these are those people, they just can't get their life together, and, you got to be careful with them. And, you don't want to end up wrapped up with them because they don't know what they're doing, and they mess up their own lives and their own drugs and blah, blah. Is that what you're going to tell your children, right? Are you going to tell them that? And then you have to be conscious that even if you don't tell them that, okay, that they're watching you, and this is going to be passed down to their children, right? So, little stuff is starting to happen. You have the The grassroots groups in masses are coming up to complain now. These are your Gardners. This person has been displaced, right? Imagine what it would take and the reason why a grassroots, like picture that, a piece of grass, the root actually has to say something now. It's all under the ground. It's minding its business. It's barely even developed. Now it's got to speak out. That's like that voice in your mind that comes up out of nowhere, and it's like, yo, this is wrong. Like, what's happening here is wrong. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop here because I want to make sure that you absorb what I'm saying. Go back and listen to this again. There's a second part of this that is going to end my series on the sheep nature and where we see it in creation, what Mother Nature has to say about it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. This is an excellent way to deliver information about reparations without, because you notice I haven't been pointing out who's responsible. I haven't been doing that because everybody's in a different situation and everybody is going to think of someone specific, right? But I haven't been doing that on purpose. But this is a great way, especially teaching young people or trying to grasp an understanding that's unbiased about reparations and racism and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Subscribe. Help me build my channel so that we can get this good information out. And stay tuned for part 2 dropping next Thursday. Peace and blessings. I'll see you soon.